The tiger's got my head in its mouth. I thought, this is my blood. I'm laying on my blood.
It had its horns facing me, and it just kept ramming me and ramming me. It'd back up and then ram me again.
His hand is bleeding, just pouring the blood. I couldn't believe what was happening to us.
It's everyone's worst nightmare, being eaten alive by a wild animal. In this episode, 3 remarkable stories of caged animals that break free and become killers on the loose. What's it like when you become human prey?
There it is.
Gary Brown was nearly ripped apart during a deadly chimp attack on a sightseeing trip in West Africa.
He turned and started screaming and charged. I didn't know that they get up to the strength of 7 men.
On the west coast of Africa, deep in the Sierra Leone rainforest, a large captive colony of chimpanzees lives peacefully on the 100-acre Taku Gama chimpanzee sanctuary. Bruno, a 200-pound alpha male, is the colony's leader.
An alpha male is the term used to describe the highest-ranking male chimpanzee. The alpha male is the chimpanzee who can win a fight with the other males.
In the wild, Bruno would rule a territory at least 50 times the size of the Taku Gama sanctuary. Less than 40 minutes away, Texan telecommunications engineer Gary Brown is enjoying a day off at his hotel. Working here is a dream come true.
They're hiring in Africa. Anybody want to go to Africa? And I held my hand up and said, I'll do it. I wanted to work overseas.
Yeah, let's do it.
This weekend, Gary's decided to head up to the mountains with a colleague, along with his friend Melvin Mama and their driver, Issa.
I said my days off is going to be spent going and seeing Africa, real Africa.
Issa drives them deep in the rainforest towards the Taku Gama chimp sanctuary.
He had told me for 2 weeks before about this place, and other Americans had said, yeah, you got to go up there and get pictures or something to see.
It's the largest chimp refuge in the world. Bruno is the alpha male. He's so big.
Yes, I'm from Texas. We grow prairie dogs bigger than any ape.
You'll be glad he's behind an electric fence.
Yeah.
At the Taku Gama sanctuary, Bruno keeps a close eye on his keepers.
If you're in captivity, you spend a lot of time just watching, and they would see these locks being opened and closed many times a day, and be watching very carefully to see how to get out. The chimpanzees presumably took a rock and banged it against the lock. The chimps in this part of the world know how to use rocks. Very few other animals do that. Chimpanzees and humans are really the tool-making and tool-using masters.
No one knows for sure how it happened, but it's a breakout. Bruno and 30 other chimps escaped their enclosure and head for the sanctuary's perimeter fence and the jungle beyond.
This is really the first taste of freedom that this chimpanzee has had.
Unaware of the breakout, Gary and his friends continue to the chimp sanctuary.
You just look up in the mountains and you're just mesmerized. The trees, the size of the trees, the canopy.
Bruno rips through the dense jungle. This is his territory now.
He was exploring his world, seeing what world outside the sanctuary was like, and is probably afraid.
Like the other chimps at the sanctuary, Bruno was brought here as an orphan. His mother was killed in the controversial bushmeat trade.
In Sierra Leone, like much of the rest of Africa, people eat chimpanzees and other primates for food. They would have seen their mother and probably other members of their community shot and killed when they were young. The chimpanzees would have that experience. They would remember strangers coming. They would remember the gunfire. And it's probably a reasonable assumption on the chimpanzee's part that a strange human being is a dangerous creature.
Bruno hears an approaching car. The chimp immediately sizes up the situation.
Hey, slow down.
What is that? Something moving in the bushes. Hey, what is that?
I don't know, man, but I want to get a shot of it. Come on, let's go.
All of a sudden, out of the brush, this big black thing jumped out. First thing I thought was, cool, you know, I'm seeing something in the wild.
Windows. Turn the windows up.
Slow down, man. Jesus.
Issa quickly recognizes that the huge chimp is charging. It's time to get out.
Issa, he just threw the car in reverse and just took off backwards.
But fleeing only makes things worse.
He caught up and he was level with the front window.
Bruno seems to have disappeared.
And all of a sudden, it was just like an explosion.
A chimpanzee that's 120 pounds is going to be mostly bone and muscle with not a lot of fat. So you have a very compact and powerful creature.
Fighting for their lives, they somehow manage to shove the furious chimp out the window. Melvin's hand has been bitten to shreds.
Right here, all this was gone.
If you run, you're showing that you're afraid of him, you're weak, and he'll take advantage of that. Basically, what they're doing is they're doing damage to whatever they can get a hold of and whatever is exposed to them.
Not only is Melvin losing a lot of blood, but bacteria from Bruno's saliva could be spreading through his bloodstream. With 2-inch fangs and jaw muscles 3 times denser than a human's, a chimp's bite can be deadly. They need to get to a hospital. Fast.
And we were yelling at him, slow down. He said, find a place to turn around, we got to get out of here.
Panicking, He misses a vital turnoff. They're lost. Terrified, they hit a dead end.
There was a gate that stood probably 10 to 12 feet tall.
With their savage attacker hot on their trail.
I couldn't believe what was happening to us.
They only have one option.
We stalled. Guys.
The collision kills the engine. This car isn't going anywhere.
We're on the hill. Let's push it, guys. Let's get a jump start.
But Bruno hasn't finished protecting his new territory.
When they tried to escape, that showed the chimpanzee that they were afraid and vulnerable and may well have triggered a chase response.
There it is. It's coming back.
In the Sierra Leone rainforest, American Gary Brown and his party have been attacked by an enormous chimp.
I was blacked out, knocked out, I don't know whatever, but I lost a little bit of time. I don't remember people getting out of the car.
Horrified, he spots Melvin on the ground. Bruno is chewing him apart. The chimp takes Melvin's foot in his mouth and bites down. Gary's adrenaline kicks in.
I was angry and just mad. Instead of running, I just started looking for a weapon. That's when I lost it. I had enough. And everything that came over me, came through me. All of a sudden, I had total clarity.
When the chimpanzee saw Gary standing his ground, he would have seen an opponent who was not afraid, an opponent who was angry, and an opponent who could really inflict some damage of his own.
I had the tree turned up and was ramming him. And he was trying to get up, and I kept ramming him on the ground.
It was a very powerful and hurtful blow, and that was absolutely the right thing to do because it convinced the chimp that if it kept up this attack, it was going to get hurt.
Suddenly, Bruno bolts off.
The fight was over with him because he kept his back to me. And what I seen when we attacked each other, eye contact, facial expressions, that was totally gone on him now.
Melvin is badly wounded. His foot is completely mangled.
He's bleeding to death. And he goes, "I'm going to die here." And I told him, I said, "No, you die here, I die here with you. I'm not leaving you." He's my friend, you know.
And there's no sign anywhere of their driver.
Where's this one? He went for help. We gotta go. We gotta go.
I could hear chimpanzees everywhere. We were totally surrounded, and we took off down the mountain. These chimps never jumped out. They stayed in the jungle. I kept looking ahead. And finally, we made it out. We made it to the road, the main road.
More than an hour later, a passing truck picks them up and takes them to a nearby hospital. Later that day, Gary learns that Issa was mauled to death by the other runaway chimps. Doctors are unable to save Melvin's foot and 3 of his fingers.
There ain't 5 minutes don't go by I don't see it. I'm going to have to picture it in my head every day the rest of my life.
If you get bit by a snake or a shark or something, it's kind of impersonal and you sort of expect it. But for a chimpanzee, something that is clearly very similar to us in lots of ways, it would just seem a lot more personal, I'm sure.
I have no misconceptions. I know Bruno could have taken me apart in a heartbeat. He could have taken me, he was just off guard.
Of the 31 chimpanzees that escaped the sanctuary, 27 were recaptured or returned on their own. 4, including Bruno, are still on the loose. Gary Brown's case is not unique. In May 2007, a silverback male gorilla named Boquito escaped from a Rotterdam zoo. Petronella Yvonne the Horde was a regular visitor. She adored Boquito. She visited him 4 times a week, always smiling and making eye contact. She felt she had a special bond with the 400-pound gorilla. But on May 18th, 2007, Boquito somehow escaped. He headed straight for Petronella. To a gorilla, a toothy smile is an act of aggression, and now it was payback. Boquito dragged her around the zoo, breaking her arm and wrist. Visitors locked themselves in the cafeteria for safety. Boquito broke down the door, sending tables and chairs flying. Eventually, he was shot with a tranquilizer dart. Petronella never fully healed. Apes are by no means the most dangerous animals in captivity. Some would argue that honor belongs to the tiger. It can slay any human in its path with a single bite. Despite their deadly reputation, people still try to contain and control these remarkable creatures. In the 1920s, when touring circuses and wild animal acts were all the rage, Mabel Stark was the tiger queen. She would take 18 tigers at a time into the ring. But not even the tiger queen could conquer the basic instincts of a hardwired killer. She was attacked 18 times. The worst took place in 1928 at a show in Bangor, Maine. Stalking her from behind, one of her beloved cats lashed out at her left leg, almost severing it above the knee. Smelling blood, a second tiger jumped off his pedestal and pushed Mabel to the ground, mauling her savagely. Although doctors felt she would never survive, Mabel miraculously recovered and was eventually back in the ring with the animals she loved. As Mabel knew all too well, containing tigers is a risky business. Animal lover Jan Gold was also savaged by a captive tiger. When it broke free at a zoo, her lavish fundraising dinner turned into a living nightmare.
He just reached up and grabbed my back. He bit into my head, and the next thought was, am I gonna survive this?
Jeez, go for help! Go for help! Go for help!
Zoo Boise is one of the most popular attractions in southern Idaho. The stars here are brothers Taiga and Tundra, a newly arrived pair of 2-year-old, 600-pound Siberian tigers. Also known as Amur tigers, they are at the zoo to provide an important gene pool to help ensure the survival of the species. Tigers are highly endangered. There are now more of them living in captivity than in the wild. But keeping one of the world's most deadly hunters behind bars comes with big risks.
There have been at least 45 deaths by tigers in captivity of humans over the last 10 years. And there have been 115 injuries serious enough to make the media.
Tonight, Jan is helping to stage a fundraiser called the Feast for the Beast, a name that will soon prove darkly ironic.
This was the largest fundraiser at the zoo. So there was going to be a silent auction, a live auction, some entertainment. All of this was on the park grounds at the zoo.
The money will help build better facilities for the zoo's animals.
I believe in doing what I can for the animals. I love animals. It's always been a fascination for me.
In the wild, taiga and tundra would roam a territory 18 times the size of Manhattan. They are natural-born killers who can never be completely tamed. They can slaughter with a single bite.
You can see animals at zoos, for example, that look at children running back and forth in front of the cages. There is an interest in chasing these children.
Nearby in the tiger enclosure, taiga and tundra are getting increasingly hungry. In the wild, they would learn to kill and eat large prey, even bears. But on the menu tonight is 10 pounds of raw horse meat and vitamins. While the tiger's meal is being prepared, Jan takes care of last-minute details.
I had to run some errands and pick some items up for the auction that was going to take place that evening, and it was just kind of setting things up.
Around the zoo, workers are finishing off their chores. One of the tiger cages is accidentally left unlocked, but no one notices.
Hello, everyone. Allison, it's wonderful to see you. You enjoying yourself? Excellent. Well, the barbecue should almost be ready, and then it'll be over for you. Excellent.
Nightfall, and the zoo's social event of the year is underway. It's a good turnout.
Dinner was kind of buffet style and then sitting under a tent, and there was a little bit of entertainment, and then we went on to the live auction.
In the nearby tiger cage, taiga and tundra are most likely agitated by all the commotion. Unlike the tigers, Jan and the others at the party have already been well fed. And now, it's time to stretch their legs.
I got up with some friends, and we just decided to walk around. And we saw the manager walk by.
Hello, ladies.
Hey, how are you?
You want to feed the boys?
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
Well, that meant he was feeding the tigers.
That'd be great.
I'm just going to phone ahead. You guys keep going. Yeah, Steve?
We weren't the only ones invited. There were other people, too. Mostly board members and family of the board members or friends.
Jan and her guests are excited. They can't wait to see the big cats feed.
Here we go.
As I walked down the hall, there was 3 cages on my right.
Jan spots something strange.
The last cage, the gate was wide open, and we noticed that. And we just kind of, well, obviously they must know it's open. And we talked about it, thinking, well, maybe they are going to direct the tigers into the first 2 cages.
Instead, one of the tigers is now heading towards the third open cage. And face to face with Jan.
All of a sudden, there was a tiger in there.
Hello, ladies. How are you doing? You want to feed the boys?
At a zoo fundraiser in Boise, Idaho, a cage door has accidentally been left open. And now, board member Jan Gold is face to face with Taiga, a 600-pound Siberian tiger on the loose.
It probably never had the door open before. It didn't know what to expect, but it moved forward and it could keep moving forward.
He is 600 pounds. I mean, his head was, you know, into my hip area. That's how tall he was.
The tiger was probably as surprised as Jan Gould was that they were face to face. And it didn't know what to do, but it did know there was an animal in front of it.
At that point, my focus was seeing if I could get this gate shut and keep the tiger in there.
But that's easier said than done. Taiga's still not sure how to react.
He may not have even seen her as prey because he had never had any experience with live prey. She was just a moving object. But something deep inside said, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
He's moving toward me. I mean, it's a force moving toward me. It was like a few conscious, slow steps because he wasn't stopping, and he was right there.
Desperate, Jan tries to buy herself some time.
I held my purse in front of him, trying to get him distracted.
The only thing you can do in that situation is try to distract the tiger. And those who survive often survive because the tiger is distracted. People throw stones or sticks.
And that's when I realized the people were leaving. I saw a couple people with terrified looks on their faces because he wasn't stopping.
The tiger hasn't attacked yet, most likely because Jan's looking it in the eyes.
You want to look big. You want to face it.
In the wild, tigers prefer to attack their prey from behind. Without realizing, Jan makes a tragic mistake.
I was down, and it was very surreal.
When she turned around, she provided the framework for the tiger to see, aha, this is prey. And it was at that point that 10 million years of evolution kicked in and it tried to be a tiger.
I mean, he just reached up and grabbed my back and just brought me down.
When the tiger is attacking a wild animal, it will grab it by the neck and try and drag it down and break the animal's neck and crush the trachea until it can't breathe anymore, and then it often drags it off to feed.
I can feel his chest over my back. He bit into my head, and the next thought was, am I gonna survive this?
His powerful 4-inch canines can easily puncture Jan's neck vertebrae, forcing them apart, eventually breaking her spinal cord.
He had no experience. He didn't know where to bite, but he bit, and he grabbed her head, and he kept on going.
All the others can do is look on in horror.
I thought he actually bit through and crushed my skull, and it was so loud. And then he came to a point and just stopped, and he held me there. He just sort of held me.
A police officer hired as security for the event takes aim.
You gotta shoot the tiger! Shoot the tiger! Get over! Hey!
For the veteran cop, it's tricky getting a clean shot. He fires slightly over Taiga's head just to scare him off. Startled, Tiger retreats to his cage and is finally locked up.
The bullets was enough to surprise the tiger to move back. It had never experienced something like this.
Unfortunately, in the shootout, a bullet has accidentally struck Jan in the hip, shattering the top of her femur.
I'm laying on the ground, and I can't move from the waist down, or I can't feel anything.
Jan is rushed to the hospital. Her injuries are horrific.
They didn't know if I'd walk again. I had so many nerves that were damaged because that bullet, when it hit my bone, it exploded. And so I still have lots of shrapnel in there. My hip had to be rebuilt, and a lot of nerves were severed. I've lost probably about a third of the nerve and muscle activity in my leg.
It takes more than 2 years for Jan to get over the ordeal, and there aren't just the physical scars to deal with.
There was a period of time where every time I closed my eyes, I'd be reliving it under a different scenario. That was one of the things I had to go through and recover from.
The reason Jan Gold is alive today is the tiger was too young, too inexperienced. It didn't know how to deal a fatal blow. But at the end of the day, a tiger is a tiger, and it will not have lost its tigerness.
For the last 8 years, Taiga and Tundra have continued to live in Zoo Boise with no further incidents. To avoid conflict, most captive animals are kept away from humans. But what about those bred specifically to attack, like bulls? Every 7th of July, locals and tourists gather in Pamplona, Spain to outrun a pack of angry bulls. It's a controversial event that dates back to the 16th century. As many as 300 participants are injured each year. 14 have been killed since 1910. In 1995, Matthew Tassio fell while trying to avoid a charging bull. Just 22, Tassio became the first American to die on the streets of Pamplona. Even matadors with years of training can never completely control a powerful bull. In 1947, top bullfighter Manuel Rodriguez Sanchez finally met his match. Going in for the kill, Sanchez was savagely gored, his femoral artery slashed by the animal's jagged horns. The man everyone thought could tame the brute force of a bull was pronounced dead hours later. Half a century later, police officer Kenneth Shaw also found out the hard way what it's like to try to stop a 1,400-pound runaway bull.
And it was on top of me, slamming me into the ground, and I felt the pain go up to my chest. This thing ain't stopping.
Just north of Boston, in Lowell, Massachusetts, a controversial event is underway, a bloodless bullfight. In this version of the event, the animals are not killed. Nonetheless, bulls that are used are much more aggressive than regular farm animals.
They're wiry, they're fit, they're athletic, they're fast, they're angry. So their, if you like, threshold for aggression is very different. So it's comparing a Labrador with a pit bull.
As this enormous 1,400-pounder waits to face the matador, he gets increasingly worked up.
When they're confined, when they're frightened, they get sometimes mean and certainly unpredictable. So stress, fear is really the big danger signal for bulls that will get them to do things that in nature they would never do normally.
And for this bull, that means busting out of his trailer, one way or another. Nearby, Lowell police officers Maggie Malik and Kenneth Shaw are on duty.
Basically, your job was to keep the patrons from not coming from the facility with any type of alcohol or anything like that.
Gorgeous, hot, bright, sunny day. We had over 300 cars. We almost had to close the gates because we couldn't fit another car in.
Maggie's main concern is that she doesn't have to watch any of the fight.
I didn't want to see it because I don't agree with an animal to be antagonized and ridiculed, and I felt this was inhumane.
Their real problem, however, is a few hundred yards away in the bull's trailer. The noise is pushing the animal over the edge.
There was a lot of alcohol flowing. There was a lot of banging around and noise and music, and that's pretty nasty cocktail for a bull, really. You have the makings of a bull that is going to be, if you like, out of his mind with anger.
Suddenly, panic rips through the crowd milling around outside.
All of a sudden, I see people start to run and start screaming.
Kenneth races around the corner and comes face to face with a half-ton nightmare. Somehow, the angry bull is broken loose.
Now, all of a sudden, I'm in a situation where I have to deal with that animal that's running rampant.
There's no truth in the belief that red specifically is antagonistic to bulls. Movement is the biggest single factor which triggers a bull attack.
The bull zeroes in on a target.
The gentleman was basically with his back up against the bed of the pickup truck, and the bull just kept slamming him into the back end of the pickup truck. The strength of this animal was truly amazing.
If Kenneth doesn't do something quick, the man will be crushed to a pulp. The diamond-like tip of the bull's horns can easily gore into soft tissues.
I just started to basically make noises, waving my hands, trying to get its attention. Then turn its attention on me. My adrenaline was just, it just all came so quickly.
Charging at full speed is a wall of muscle.
It was a scary sight.
Nearby, Maggie is unaware that a furious monster is gunning for her partner.
Everybody's screaming, there's music going on. You can't really hear anything.
It charged me, and I jumped on a vehicle that was close. It slammed off that vehicle and then just bounced off. But I knew it could pack a wallop, so I didn't want to get hit with that.
There is no protection against an attack by a determined bull, and especially a bull of that breeding, of that degree of infuriation, of that degree of temper.
Finally, Maggie spots her partner. Kenneth has nowhere to go.
They can really hit like a battering ram. Nothing is going to stop them, really. You'll be punctured. It'll go through your rib cage or some other part of your anatomy.
So they basically threw my body from the side onto the hood of the vehicle to to get away from its wrath.
And that made the bull mad. Don't frustrate him and don't antagonize him, because you always know that he can pull all the shots.
It's frustrated. It looks for something else to demolish. It spots Maggie.
He came with a run. He came with a snort. I don't know how to play like that. It's like, oh my God, what do I do with this bull?
She zigzags, desperately trying to lose him, but he sticks to her like a shadow.
They have this real benefit of almost 360 degrees coverage, so it makes them able probably to react more quickly than humans. So if you stand still, the likelihood is that you won't be attacked.
Golly, locked in on my eyes. And that put a chill down my spine.
They do this burst of heavy breath out from the nostrils. And this is carrying a chemical message. I'm loaded with testosterone. I'm really the king guy around here, and you take me on at your peril.
The bull loses interest in Maggie and rushes off the stadium grounds, still fuming. Trying to escape, he heads downtown.
Oh my God!
If the bull can't be stopped, hundreds of lives are now at risk. At a bloodless bullfight in Lowell, Massachusetts, a half-ton bull is on a violent rampage. And now, it's police officer Kenneth Shaw's job to take it down before he reaches the busiest part of town.
I'm thinking that this animal is gonna basically cause a lot of havoc if we don't stop it. I didn't really even know what I was gonna do. I didn't want anybody else to get hurt.
His strength and his power and whatever is going on with him. We're not taught in the police academy how to handle it.
The only way that I'm gonna be able to take it out was if I hit it in the head.
But the bullets barely make a dent.
So the bullets would have hit into the side of that animal, caused it pain, but didn't ultimately penetrate and cause damage to internal organs. All they would have succeeded in doing would be to infuriate the animal. They have very good armor in the form of their thick skin.
The raging bull continues towards the crowd.
And I was just hoping that it wasn't gonna take a left where all the shopping malls were.
Kenneth catches a break. The bull runs off the road and right into an empty parking lot.
In an ideal situation, they would have just tried to contain or keep it in that parking lot, let it calm down.
This is Officer Kenneth Shaw. I need backup. I need backup.
The animal is cornered. It panics. And then it spots a familiar foe.
The bull would have recognized him as that same individual, no doubt, and it was an unfinished battle.
It's now or never for Kenneth.
I have to try to take this out. If I don't, someone else is gonna get hurt.
But again, the bullets have little effect.
This thing ain't stopping. So then all of a sudden it turned and started to do an all-out charge right at me.
They will charge through literally a brick wall.
It was basically literally trying to destroy me, was trying to kill me. You know, it was bulldozing me and bulldozing me into the ground. Every time that I tried to get up and get off the ground, it kind of knew what it was doing. It'd swing its head and swipe at my feet and knock me back on the ground again.
Pressure that they're able to exert, all their weight on your body, you're going to have broken bones and a reshaped face. And the intention is to kill you, is to take you out.
All of a sudden, I felt the pain go up to my chest. It was on top of me, basically slamming me into the ground with its head, with the horn slamming me constantly at my leg area.
The incredibly solid neck and shoulder muscles of the bull don't bend or buckle on impact. It hits like a battering ram. Maggie tries to draw the bull away for the second time.
Seeing Kenny's shattered uniform, seeing the blood on his skin, I at that point was not sure if he had gorged him in a major organ, and that takes you only seconds to bleed out.
The bull is momentarily confused by Maggie's shouts, buying Kenneth just enough time to crawl for cover beside a car.
His knee is gorged. It looked like prime rib. And I know that a lot of grout and dirt and soot, it needs a lot of cleaning, a lot of room for infection, tendon repair, maybe fractured bones.
Kenneth's in bad shape. Time is ticking. Maggie needs to act now. But the bull still wants a piece of Maggie and takes dead aim.
So I said, come on, let's bring it on. Let's go get him. And I shot him right between the eyeballs and on the forehead.
Which is actually the location that is used in slaughter, official slaughter of cattle.
This time, the shot stuns the half-ton bull. He staggers away to the other end of the lot. Meanwhile, it's not looking good for Kenneth.
I looked down and I could see my bones running the back of my leg.
You're gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine.
The bull is finally put down when police backup arrives at the scene. Kenneth is rushed to the hospital and goes under the knife.
Tore out a piece of my quadricep. And then I also received basically a laceration to one of my testicles. I could bend one knee, but I couldn't bend the other.
2 years later, he finally returns to the police force, a hero.
I get the Medal of Valor for basically my actions that day.
Despite the controversy, bloodless bullfights are still held in some states, including Texas and California. Preservation is the main argument for keeping dangerous animals behind bars. But there will always be the potential for escape.
It's a wild animal, and you can't control it.
They will never be completely trained.
And when they break free, we can become human prey.
If we frustrate them, then they will attack us.
She had already had her mouth over my head. She would have killed me.
She was looking for a death bite.
They go through bone like you and I go through a candy bar.
It's everyone's worst nightmare, being eaten alive by a wild animal. In this episode, 3 horrific stories of people who've been attacked by predators of the African savanna. What's it like to become human prey? Conservationist Gary Kamasha was lucky to escape alive when he was savagely attacked by a lion on a game reserve.
And I thought that this was it. I thought this would be the end.
The African savanna, home to one of the most feared predators on Earth, the lion. Thousands of people have met their end in the jaws of these killer cats. This pride lives in a game reserve in South Africa's Mpumalanga province. And when food is short, or they feel threatened, these big cats can turn man-eater. With lions around, no one can afford to be off guard. Danger is part of the job for 23-year-old conservationist Gary Kamasha. He manages the reserve's lions, and today he has a problem. A lioness is wounded, and she's pregnant.
This female, because she was injured and finding it difficult to keep up with the pride to feed and to compete for food around the carcasses and things like that, she was getting very hungry.
If Gary tries to treat the lioness, the pride can tear him apart. His plan? To isolate her in an enclosure by luring her in with bait. But the dominant males get to the meat first. Some are her own offspring. Days later, Gary is still waiting. He relaxes with friends and makes a dangerous mistake.
I took off my sidearm and put it to the one side to just be more comfortable and not thinking of anything that can happen at that point.
But today will be different. The pride is staying outside the enclosure, and the hungry lioness grabs the opportunity to feed.
She's in the enclosure.
Gary is delighted she's finally taken the bait.
I'll be back in a couple of minutes. I just want to close the gate.
Now he can treat her injury.
5 minutes. Come, let's go.
I basically thought, okay, this is what we've been hoping for. Let's quickly go and close the gates and make sure that she's constrained inside.
But in the rush, he's forgotten the one thing that could protect him in an attack. "150 feet from the enclosure gates, they see the pride. The lioness isn't with them.
There she is, behind that bush.
Oh. Gary is relieved his plan is finally working. But something is wrong.
She's not alone.
One of the pride's aggressive young males is inside the enclosure and will attack if threatened.
This male was always been a bit edgy and agitated, barking at you and coughing, the typical attack bark if you get too close to him.
Getting the young lion out is dangerous, but without treatment, the lioness could die of gangrene. Gary's plan, forcing the young male out by using the truck.
So we went into the gate and I tried to get the vehicle between the male and this female and then push him out so that he could be running out. And once he would be outside, we could close the gates.
But the young lion isn't easily intimidated. He's not leaving.
I think what happened at that point, he was looking at the movement of the vehicle. So the vehicle and the people inside was posing a threat to him as well as myself. And instead of him running for the gate, he was just seeing himself being crowded by this whole scenario. I was worried that he might start getting agitated, running up and down, psyching up the female as well, the rest of the pride.
Forcing him out with the truck hasn't worked. All Gary can do now is try to flush the lion out himself.
Just gonna have to go in there and chase him out.
I thought I'd go on foot, use the vehicle as protection so the female couldn't really see what was going on, and then chase him out on foot.
It's a risky move, especially as Gary still hasn't realized he's forgotten his gun.
But trying to flush a young adolescent male on foot is a big mistake. Young males tend to be the biggest troublemakers. You know, lions are not used to being in close proximity to human beings that are not inside of a vehicle.
The lion is starting to feel threatened. It could attack at any moment.
I was just assuming that this male would just run out, and I wasn't even thinking of him feeling a bit of discomfort. I was entering his comfort zone and his personal space.
He was essentially cornered because he was in a fenced-in area, so that's the time when an animal will react out of fear.
Instead of diverting his direction towards the gap between myself and the vehicle, he was actually zooming in on me.
Give me here. Here.
I realized he was coming for me now. I did think of that point my sidearm. This was the most stupid thing that I could have done. I don't know why I took it off.
Gary tries frantically to get out of the lion's way, but it's too late.
He was planning to go for my upper body. I moved back, he misjudged himself. I think that actually, to a certain extent, saved my life.
The lion has missed Gary's head, but it locks its vice-like jaws around his leg. His friends, also unarmed, can only watch in horror. Gary has now become human prey. A lion has savagely attacked conservationist Gary Kamash. Unarmed, he must now fight for his life with his bare hands.
And I had my hands trying to push his head down and away from me and keep him down. It was like an iron vice, a big vice just clamping around my leg.
A lion's jaws can bite with nearly 900 pounds of pressure, enough to snap the spine of its prey with ease.
The lion certainly was trying to control him and immobilize him and get him to a point where he could access a more vital area.
Outside the enclosure, the pride can smell blood.
The pride were trying to figure out what's busy happening, where did those sounds come from.
The pride is becoming restless. If they join in the attack, Gary is finished. Frantic, he tries to pry open the lion's jaws.
Well, I tried to put my thumbs into his mouth between his premolars. I couldn't get in. They were already too close to each other. I just realized there's no way I'll be able to get my leg out of this.
Gary's friend Johan tries to find anything he can to use as a weapon. But he comes up empty. The pride is getting agitated. They can sense a kill.
Some lions are dedicated man-eaters, using humans as a regular part of their diet.
The hunting instinct kicks in. The attack is on.
The rest of the pride was already coming in, and I shouted to my friend, keep the rest of the pride away, keep the rest of the pride away. And knowing that if they would come in, it would have been the end.
Keep the freaking pride away!
I thought that this was it, you know. With the rest of the pride coming in to assist, I thought this would be the end. I wouldn't be able to fend off the rest of the group, so I was shouting at him, and he jumped out of the vehicle and started throwing pieces of branches and rocks.
Incredibly, Johan manages to hold the pride back.
I'm coming!
But Gary's leg is still locked in the lion's mouth. He needs to do something fast. Desperate, Gary attacks the lion's only weak spot, its eyes.
I could just feel when I pressed my thumb into his eye that he was blinking and trying to get out. That was hurting him.
The nose and the eyes are very vulnerable. That's the part of them that they have to, at all costs, to protect.
But the lion won't let go. It fights back with razor-sharp claws.
Or not only did they shred your flesh like a hot knife through butter, but the infections caused by those claws are also very septic and can lead to rapid infection and death.
A lion's claws carry deadly bacteria that can cause tumors, inflammation of the heart, and kidney failure.
I still remembered the sound of ripping flesh. And I could see the skin stretching, and then could feel the skin ripping.
Time is running out.
Don't keep them back any longer! Show!
Johan has nothing else to throw at the lions. If the pride attacks, Gary is unlikely to escape alive. South African conservationist Gary Kamasha is being ripped apart by a lion. The rest of the pride are about to join the attack.
Hey! I can't keep them back any longer!
Fearing for his life, Johan has gotten back in the vehicle.
The worst moment for me, Johan shouting, I can't fend him anymore, and his door closing, hearing his door banging, closing up. I realized how close I was to death.
Gary struggles desperately to free himself. He punches the lion in the eye, but it won't let go.
And I was just going down on his eye with my fist as hard as I could and putting my thumb into his eyes and pressing down.
For a moment, the lion loosens its grip. Gary sees his chance and takes it.
I think what he wanted to do was to reposition himself and take me down. When he started opening his mouth, I ripped my leg out of his mouth.
Come on, get in!
The rest of the pride was very psyched up. 4, 5, 10 seconds longer than I would have been taken and ripped apart.
Adrenaline is coursing through Gary's body, numbing his pain.
We need to have it checked out by a professional, okay?
Only when he's safely away does he realize the severity of his wounds.
Okay. Just
When I looked down, I saw the piece of flesh hanging out the back of my leg. He ripped some of my tendons out of my arm as well, and I didn't even pick up that I couldn't use my left hand properly.
let's pull over. I'll drive, okay? Okay. Just pull over. Okay. Pull over.
It takes half an hour to get to the nearest hospital.
On the road down to the doctor, I remember I started feeling very awkward. I started getting a bit nauseous and not feeling well. I was bleeding extensively.
Gary gets more than 50 stitches in his leg and arm. He's lucky to be alive.
There was a number of things that saved my life that day, and the one thing that was definitely the fact that he was inexperienced and a young lion, and the fact that I saw him coming for me and jumped backwards.
Just a few weeks later, Gary returns to work on the game reserve. In the meantime, the lioness's wounds has healed naturally, and she's given birth to a healthy litter. Gary's close brush with death has made him realize that on the savannah, you can never drop your guard.
I think what it did cause me is to be way more cautious than I was at that point, because I can remember I was getting more and more complacent with these animals.
Ever since Homo sapiens first walked the African savanna, we have lived in fear of the mighty lion. These superb predators have ruled their territory for over 1 million years. Unarmed, humans stand little chance. Even today, more than 100 people every year are killed by lions.
Humans have always been on the menu of lions throughout history, you know, throughout our coevolution with them.
But lions are not the only man-eaters here. The hyena is just as deadly. It can eat every part of its victim, even the bones. Hyenas are despised because they dig up graves and eat human remains. And feared because they kill the living. In the 1950s, hyenas terrorized a village in Malawi. They killed and devoured 27 people, many of them children. The stealthy man-eaters crept up on villagers as they slept outdoors during hot weather. They grabbed their victims by the head and dragged them off into the bushes to feed. There was little left for devastated families to bury. Hyenas are fearless predators. In 1972, a Malawi schoolteacher, Yerenda's luggage, was cycling to work when he was taken down by hyenas. He knew there'd be nothing left of him if they dragged him away. He fought as hard as he could, screaming for help. By the time villagers rescued him, he was barely alive. People forget how deadly hyenas can be. Danny Tail Blanche wasn't scared of them until one tried to eat him alive.
And I thought, I'm gonna die now.
Spring 1998. Aircraft pilot Danny Terreblanche is enjoying a week's vacation with friends on the Zambezi River. Every year, the group heads off into the wilderness for a taste of adventure.
All the time there's exciting moments because there's a lot of hippo. There's crocodiles, lions, and of course, hyenas.
After an action-packed day on the water, the friends pull up for the evening. A ground crew has set up camp and cooked a hearty meal.
We thought we had a very successful trip, so we were a very happy bunch of people.
It's been great, 6 days. Especially when you and
It's the last day of the holiday. Time to celebrate.
Some of my friends were wine farmers. And of course, we brought a lot of good wine with us.
It's close, eh? It's close.
We had lions every night. We knew there was quite a lot of lions, but nobody had a gun.
Are you sure you're still going to sleep out here tonight? Yeah, man.
Predators are nearby, but Danny won't sleep in a tent. A big mistake.
There's a recipe for hyena attacks, and the recipe would be sleeping with your door open, sleeping in your sleeping bag on the ground outside of a tent.
Oh, I think you're welcome. I'm going to call it a night. Good night, gentlemen. Yeah, sleep well.
All right. Yeah, you too.
Good night to you.
Every night I slept outside, yes. But with some protection, I had chairs around my mattress. And of course, I had a mosquito net that was hanging from a tree.
But a flimsy mosquito net won't stop a hungry man-eater.
These are animals that can dent a pipe, a 1-inch pipe. They can crush it without hurting their teeth.
At night, the hyena has a huge advantage. It can see in the dark.
Hyenas, like all nocturnal hunters, have incredible ability to see and smell at night. Night vision is excellent. They're looking for garbage. They're looking for the things that were thrown out after dinner. And they come onto something like a person laying there sleeping. That's a carcass to a hyena. You are a large meal for them. They're not going to check your pulse before they go ahead and grab you.
I thought somebody, they hit me with a plank over my head.
When Danny realizes it's a hyena attack, his blood runs cold. If it drags him into the bushes, it could tear him apart in seconds. Danny Terreblanche is on a kayaking holiday on the Zambezi River when he is attacked by a hyena.
I've got no weapon, and I think my way of protecting myself is to pull a thick blanket over my head. It doesn't bite my head.
A hyena's bite can exert a force of up to 1,000 pounds. They have particularly large teeth, premolars to crush bones, and carnassials at the back of the mouth, which slice up meat like scissors.
They have the strongest bite of any predator on Earth. Stronger than a lion, stronger than a bear. They go through bone like you and I go through a candy bar.
I tried to lie on my stomach in a crawl position, but it was just instinct. Then it grabbed me by the neck and it dragged me.
A few feet further into the bushes, and he could be ripped to pieces by the hungry hyena.
He will proceed to drag you off and start eating you. That's what would happen.
The hyena strategy is to kill you and then dismember you and then run away with whatever bits they could.
Without the support of the rest of the pack, the hyena cannot fight for its meal. So it retreats.
I felt the pain in my head, and when I felt it with my hand, I knew there was something terribly wrong. I felt a hole in my head. My biggest fear was that I lost my ear and I'm going to lose my hearing. And of course, the first thing that goes through one's mind is that I'm going to lose my flying career.
Luckily, Danny's ear is still in one piece.
Hold on, we just need to clean it, yeah.
My ear was still in the mosquito net, hanging by a little piece of skin from my head.
Just rinse it off.
I think they probably will wash it with some good old Cape dry red wine.
Desperate to save his ear, his friends bind it back onto the gaping wound. The nearest hospital is in Kariba, 80 miles across rough terrain. They need to hurry. Danny is at grave risk of a deadly infection. Hyenas eat rotting carcasses, and their mouths are crawling with dangerous bacteria.
You can imagine the bumps in the road. I don't know how many times I've passed out.
Adrenaline from the attack is wearing off. Danny's in shock.
I prayed a lot, and I asked God to help me, and that was, I think, that maybe pulled me through.
All right, now we're going to go through there now. Come on, the place is going to be good.
It takes them nearly 9 hours to reach Kariba. The town only has a small, basic hospital. The doctor does what she can to save Danny's ear.
She had to stitch it back onto my head, but there was no anesthetics. My friends had to hold me on the table while she did the job. That was very, very painful.
Danny's then flown back to South Africa, where a plastic surgeon performs 3 painful operations. His ear is finally restored, and he can resume his flying career. As Danny discovered, on the savannah, Homo sapiens can become just another link in the food chain. Humans aren't the usual prey for hyenas and lions. But when food is scarce, these animals will attack almost anything. In 1898, when an epidemic meant other prey was in short supply, 2 hungry lions launched one of the worst series of attacks ever recorded. The man-eating pair are thought to have killed more than 100 railway workers in Kenya. The lions may have begun by scavenging graves. Then, with a taste for human flesh, they began a bloody rampage that lasted 9 months. Work came to a standstill. Night curfews were imposed. Workers hoped high fences and fires would keep them safe. But the lions still got in. They pulled their prey from their beds and dragged them off into the bushes to be devoured. Chief Engineer Lieutenant Colonel John Henry Patterson knew he had to kill the lions if the railway was to be built. He tried for months to catch the savage predators. Then, finally, on the night of December 9th, 1898, he managed to shoot the first lion. 20 days later, he killed the second. Patterson became an instant hero. Male lions are extremely dangerous, but the lioness is just as deadly. She is a true hunter of the pride, a ruthless, efficient killer. When Bruce Meekall had to hunt a rogue lioness, he soon found out why these predators have such a terrifying reputation.
She had bitten down from the top of my head, and I was fighting for my life.
Limpopo, South Africa. This lioness is a loner. She's old and hungry. Local villagers are terrified she might start preying on their cattle, or on them.
But lions are usually persecuted by people because they pose a threat. Usually that threat is to their livestock, to their goats or their cattle.
Professional hunters are called in to put her down. Leading the team is conservationist Bruce Meekall. He's sad to have to kill such a magnificent animal. Doing the job humanely is his top priority.
It's your responsibility to make sure that things are done properly and as ethically as possible.
You go through all? Yeah.
You know, make sure that the animal goes down, you know, in a clean sweep. We had been notified by one of the trackers where the lioness was, so we headed up in our vehicle to that area. There's quite a few things to take into consideration when hunting a lion. Wind direction, the vegetation around you, and obviously the fact that you've got to have a clear visual around you. You don't want to be in really dense bush where you can end up in a bad situation.
Bruce and his crew begin tracking the rogue lioness.
So we started walking, looking for signs to see where she was. Tracks, old kills, things like that.
But the lioness has probably already picked up the hunter's scent and keeps out of sight.
Lions are very good hunters. They're very good at camouflaging themselves.
For 2 days, they search for the big cat, but she remains invisible. The longer it takes to find her, the greater the danger to local villagers.
If lions can get away with it, if they have opportunities, they consider humans part of the diet, especially in more harsh environments where prey density of their preferred prey is lower.
Finally, they work out which way the animal is heading. If they're quick, they just might catch her.
later that morning, we had actually bumped into her purely through tracking. That enabled us, obviously, to get set up to take the shot.
Bruce wants to take the lioness out with a single bullet. If he only wounds her, she's likely to attack. Bruce Meekall has been tracking a rogue lioness for 2 days. He now needs to put her down with a single bullet.
The shot was a good shot. But she got up and ran off. Went into thick bush.
Something has gone very wrong. The bullet hit the lioness, but hasn't killed her.
So the bullet hadn't done what it was supposed to do. The bullet opens up and has a hard impact in order to make an instant kill. In this situation, it basically just went straight through.
If you didn't kill them the first time, and you just wounded them and it wasn't in a vital area and they survived, you would never get a chance again to catch up with them. And if you did, it would be after they killed another dozen or more people.
This is hard for Bruce. What should have been a swift, humane kill has resulted in an angry, injured animal.
The animal's adrenaline is up, and by walking in there immediately, you basically putting yourself into a situation where she's going to come out and attack you.
Just have to be very careful.
They decide to give the lioness a chance to calm down.
We head back as a safety precaution and got in our vehicles.
Boys, let's go.
An hour later, Bruce sets off again. He knows that he and his team are now vulnerable. The lioness is on the defensive and could strike at any moment.
When a lion is badly injured, they'll retreat 2 or 3 times at the most before they'll turn and they'll attack, whether you have 100 people with you or whether it's 1 or 2 people.
The lioness has the hunters in her sights. She waits patiently for them to come closer. Her pursuers are now her prey.
The lions will cover a distance of 100 meters in about 6 seconds. So there's not much chance to get into any position. So you basically turn, point, and take your shot. By the time I reloaded to take the second shot, she had jumped onto me.
The attack is savage. The lioness goes straight for Bruce's head.
The main thing that they go for is the most vital spot and the most vulnerable spot, and that's the neck and the head.
As we came down towards the ground, she had already had her mouth over my head and bit me on the back of my head. With the impact of us hitting the ground, my head bounced out of her mouth. To see teeth and saliva and hair, and I mean, the sound that they make is incredibly loud.
The others can't fire. They could hit Bruce.
They fling you around like a rag doll. With their strength and power, every time they hit you, your whole body is being thrown about.
She would have been feeling for his vertebrae so she could puncture and sever the spinal cord.
The wounded cat is in a frenzy.
You don't know what's happening. You're just trying to get a grip of the whole situation around you and what to do in order to survive.
The lioness is much stronger than Bruce. The moment he weakens, she will kill him. Bruce Mikal has been savagely attacked by a wounded lioness. His team can't shoot her because they might kill him. He's become human prey.
Once they go into attack mode, they don't turn back. And then they're gonna press that attack until either you're dead or they're dead.
All you're thinking about is trying to survive. Trying to get yourself into a position of maybe having an inch of control.
He must try to keep the lioness from moving long enough for his team to shoot her without hitting him. Bruce is an experienced hunter. He knows the lioness will try to gut him with her back claws.
My natural instinct was to pick my legs up so she didn't disembowel me. And when she came for my face, that's when I stuck my arm in her mouth.
Bruce has disabled 2 of her deadly weapons, her teeth and back claws. He hugs the lioness tight to immobilize her. The ordeal is finally over. But even though she nearly killed him, Bruce can't help regretting that this superb creature had to be put down.
In the instance when she had died, there is being so close, there is definitely a feeling that goes through you of what's happened to you and what's happened to her.
Shock sets in quickly. Bruce needs urgent medical attention. He has torn veins and over 40 lacerations. His injuries are life-threatening. A lion's saliva carries bacteria, which can cause terrible infection and internal bleeding.
I spent 5.5 hours in surgery. I came out of hospital after 1.5 to 2 weeks. You know, then it's a long recovery, I think, from there, mentally and physically. Within a couple of months, I'd healed up. I was able to use, you know, my arm again and a bit of therapy that, you know, that helped. On the mental side, I think you've got to accept what's happened to you and move forward.
You know, there's very few first-hand accounts like that because lions usually, when they attack like that, they usually kill their victim.
Bruce is lucky to survive. Despite his close brush with death, he goes back to work as a conservation manager in the savannah. But he's given up hunting for good.
It's hard to go back to doing what you were doing after an incident like that. There's definitely a sense of respect and a sense of fear.
Lions and hyenas can kill a person in seconds, but attacks are rare. Normally, these predators will avoid us. It's only when food is scarce or they feel threatened that they strike. And when they do, the results are devastating.
I realized how close I was to death that day. I think it gave me a lot of more respect for life. It made me realizing that every moment, any moment could be your last moment.
Surprisingly, many survivors don't blame the animals.
I've got more respect for hyenas because it's an opportunistic killer. I have more respect for hyena, and I won't take a chance or give them a chance.
My whole life I've worked in the conservation industry. And you work with dangerous game on a daily basis. So, yeah, there's definitely a respect for big game, knowing their potential, but also the fact that we are in their territory.
As we encroach ever further into their territory, there will still be times on the African savanna when we become human prey.
My whole head was in its mouth.
And just literally just trying to break my skull.
He was eating me.
It's everyone's worst nightmare, being eaten alive by a wild animal. In this episode, 3 terrifying stories of people who've been savaged by bears. What's it like to become human prey? In the summer of 2005, Johan Otter tried to save his daughter from the jaws of an angry grizzly while hiking in Montana.
I really felt like I was trying to rip my head off. And I remember thinking, okay, one more bite and I'm done.
Glacier National Park, one of America's last great wilderness areas. It's home to the nation's most feared predator, the grizzly bear. Every year, grizzlies claim the lives of people who get too close. Johan Otter and his daughter Jenna are here for a hiking vacation.
This one right here.
Right here.
Yep. See, I've got
to celebrate her graduation.
All right.
And it's kind of cool that your daughter still wants to go on a senior trip, you know, and with Dad to go into the mountains.
But today's ambitious hike will test them in more ways than they can possibly imagine. Survival in this wilderness is brutal. This female grizzly is dangerous. She has 2 cubs and will attack anything that comes near them. Dr. Barry Gilbert knows just how deadly these bears can be. He himself was badly mauled by a grizzly.
Grizzly bears have the smallest young of any of the mammals. They can weigh 2 or 3 pounds when they're young, so they're really vulnerable. This is what has caused the female to evolve into being suicidally aggressive. She lays out her all for those cubs.
It's too early for other hikers to be on the trail.
I sort of had this underlying nervousness. In the morning and the evening hours are the prime feeding times for animals, so that's when they're going to be out and about a lot more.
I gotta take a video of this.
This is beautiful.
Wow.
But Dad, we've got a long way to go. Let's keep going.
But Johan and Jenna are seasoned hikers.
The precaution I knew when hiking was just to make noise.
We knew to not be too quiet, although we didn't know how loud to actually be. We talked continuously during that time, and we made sure we looked around as much as possible.
You can run to work and then take a shower.
So your mom wanted me to have a talk with you about keeping to your studies.
They also carry a can of bear spray. This is their only defense against a predator attack.
If I don't... We didn't have it on our belt, it was just in the backpack. You know, really thinking that you're not going to be able to have to use that. It's not going to happen to you.
They climb higher and further away from human habitation. If anything should happen to them, Johan and Jenna are on their own. Grizzlies normally steer clear of people. They can pick up a scent from over 2 miles away. But the wind is blowing down the mountain, away from the bear.
And that would just negate the bear's best warning system, which is its nose, its sense of smell. And that's almost a perfect storm scenario.
The grizzly is now on a deadly collision course.
A surprised bear is an angry bear, and an angry bear is an aggressive bear and a dangerous bear.
So do you honestly think that you're going to be able to keep up with, practice and dance? Wow. Look at this.
High above the lake, the view is spectacular. Johan and Jenna fall silent, a mistake that could cost their lives.
There's a bend in the trail, so you can't see around it, but you don't expect anything to be around it, which I guess is a bad assumption to make. In front of me is a mother grizzly bear, followed by 2 cubs right behind her. I thought, I'm going to die.
If you turn and run, you've immediately put a hamburger sign across your back.
To save his daughter, Johan puts his own life on the line.
And it's something instinctual. It's not something you actually think about. It basically went into my thigh.
The bear bites deep into Johan's leg, again and again, right down to the bone.
It wasn't like it was holding on to my leg and just kind of being in there. No, it was kind of in-out type of thing.
If he wants to live, Johan has to break loose. But there's only one way out, down.
I decided to jump off the trail. It was about 20, 25 feet into some bushes. My eye was already bleeding or something like that at that point, so something must have gotten into my face. Because the animal went at me like this, so it must have been one of the claws.
Then I see the can of bear spray that my dad had in the side pocket of his backpack. I pick up the can, but I didn't know how to work the can. And you can't really stop and read instructions at that point.
Out of time and options, Jenna leaps into the unknown. Johan has no idea his daughter has jumped.
Jenna, down here!
And I see the bear cocks its head back again, looks down at me.
By being active, she might have interpreted that he was doing a circle around to get at the cubs.
Hell-bent on finishing them off, the bear charges down the mountain.
Never felt or seen anything as strong and fast in my life. It's one big piece of muscle. It was lifting me up nearly out of the bushes.
Bears will sometimes try to flip people over to get at their face when they're going after people.
It was like, I need to keep this animal with me, you know, away from Jenna, basically. Next thing I remember, falling around a good steep fall, I'd say 30 feet or something.
Johann's luck holds. He's cheated death once more. But by chance, Johann has landed on the same ledge as Jenna.
And then when I landed down, and here's that bear, it's still, you know, with me.
Trying to protect his daughter, Johann has brought the angry grizzly straight to her. Now the bear moves in for the kill. Johann Otter and his daughter Jenna have escaped a savage grizzly by throwing themselves off a mountain. Hot on their trail, the bear is going in for the kill.
The animal just wants to get rid of you, to neutralize you, to make you no threat to her cubs.
Jenna tries to hide, but Johann faces the predator head on.
But I just wanted to make sure it was, you know, away from Jenna.
Johann grabs for the nearest weapon, but it turns to dust.
And I still remember those two eyes, amber brown, looking straight into my eyes. No feelings.
Looking bears straight in the eye and continuing to look at them is generally aggressive.
And it really started chomping down on my arm. It was just ripping it apart.
We don't have the physical structure to stand up to even a friendly wrestling match with a bear, let alone when they're ticked off and a mom is feeling defensive about her cubs.
You have this helpless feeling of, I can't do anything, but you want to help, but you can't do anything.
The bear goes for the killer bite to his head.
It's going after a person just like it would another bear. They're aiming for the mouth and the face because they're trying to disable their opponent's weapons. That's their teeth, that's their jaws.
The grizzly's canines are about 2 inches long, made for gripping and tearing. The molars are flat for crushing and grinding.
It really felt like it was trying to rip my head up. And the tooth really went into my skull. I could feel this bone cracking. And I remember thinking, okay, one more bite and I'm done. And then I looked down and I'm like, oh, one more fall and I'm dead. But I also knew that if I would stay there, I would be dead.
Determined not to die, Johann breaks free and leaps into the void once again. A small rocky ledge saves him from certain death, 1,400 feet below.
And then I looked up, and the bear kind of was looking over the ledge, basically. I couldn't get to me. It was too steep, basically.
But the grizzly isn't done yet. It can still smell human flesh.
It was just fear of being found, which you know is inevitable. I heard the bear breathing, and sort of like that stomach churning, like, oh no, kind of feeling. And I must have screamed.
Jenna. Worst sound in the world. You've tried to keep this animal with you as long as possible to keep it away from your daughter, and still.
Jenna is trapped.
Its lower jaw was the one that ripped open my mouth, and the upper one was the one that grabbed on my neck. And my whole head was in its mouth. Okay, I'm dead. Get it over with.
This could be the end of the line for Jenna. Johan Otter has escaped a savage grizzly attack by jumping off a mountain. The bear has now turned on his 18-year-old daughter.
Jenna.
Face to face with death, Jenna takes a huge gamble.
I just tried to be as still as possible so that it would think that I was dead.
The playing dead routine works if you can quit moving, and if you can remain as silent as possible. That tells the bear, okay, this person is no longer a threat. You can leave.
Jenna keeps completely still and silent. Johan has no idea what is happening.
I don't hear anything anymore. I mean, it could mean one or two things. One, the animal left my daughter alone, or two, she's dead.
Johan doesn't dare make a sound. If the bear has gone, any noise might bring it back. He waits 2 agonizing minutes, then decides to take a chance.
Jenna?
That's probably the best feeling. I'm sorry. It's still get a little emotional.
Are you okay?
I'm okay.
Her voice was very strong, sounded very healthy.
Oh, I think I'm banged up pretty bad.
And it was going through my head, and then all I feel was just bone, 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 bone. Like, okay, I'm not gonna feel anymore. That's not good.
It's still too early for many hikers to be this far up the trail. Johan uses his nylon jacket to protect his exposed scalp. He needs urgent medical attention. Adrenaline triggered by the attack is draining away. He is going into shock.
I was getting a little woozy. I was just shaking. I was so cold.
Johan and Jenna's cries are finally heard by other hikers. 2 hours later, they're airlifted to the hospital. Johan's spine and neck are broken. His scalp needs a skin graft. He has 3 broken ribs, a broken nose, and a punctured eye. It takes 9 operations and many months for Johan to recover. Jenna also requires surgery and begins university wrapped in bandages.
Yeah, you kind of feel guilty in a way, you know, because you've taken your daughter into a dangerous area. Shouldn't have done that. That's when you get a little emotional, like, you know, shoot, I'm doing this to all these people. But I guess folks didn't care. They were happy I was still alive. So.
After the attack, experts agree the bear was acting naturally, trying to defend her cubs. They thought she posed no further danger to people, so she was not put down. For thousands of years, bears were America's supreme predators. From Alaska to Mexico, they were top of the food chain. Native Americans were in awe of their ferocious temper and huge strength. Some tribes worshiped bears. They wore their skin and claws as symbols of power. But killing a bear meant hunting in groups. It increased the chance of coming back alive. European settlers, however, were far less cautious. They saw bears as a dangerous pest that preyed on their livestock. Convinced their guns would protect them, they set out to kill as many as possible.
And this was the age of the homesteader. And for those people, if they lost a cow, if they lost a couple sheep, you know, it was a huge cost for them.
In the mid-1800s, prospectors pushed deeper into bear country, looking for gold. Scavenging bears soon learned that where there were people, there were food scraps. Very occasionally, bears also developed a taste for human flesh. Today, there are still freak incidents when bears see humans as prey. In the summer of 1997, Kelly McConnell's life was shattered when a black bear went on one of North America's most horrific bear rampages.
It was just trying to eat me.
Liard River Hot Springs, British Columbia, a popular place to relax and unwind. It's home to many black bears who feed on food scraps that people leave behind. In rare cases, they can take that terrible next step.
It's bears that have been both habituated to people and then food conditioned that have injured or preyed on people.
Like other bears in the park, this male feeds on human leftovers as well as plants and insects and the occasional young animal. An opportunistic predator, he's almost always hungry, a potentially dangerous situation.
When are we gonna go back to Paris?
We're gonna go back to Paris.
13-year-old Kelly McConnell and his mother, Patty, are moving from Texas to Alaska to start a new life. They're breaking the long trip with a well-earned rest.
We're just gonna relax after a long day of driving. We just wanted to go to the hot springs itself and relax.
Even though they know there are bears in the area, Kelly and his mother decide to explore the park.
And I actually did comment at that time, I wish that I could see one. And then my mother corrected me and told me that I did not wish I would see one.
But Kelly and his mother have no idea of the danger they're in.
It's so rare. Are going to
The bear can smell prey, and it's closing in on them.
A predaceous attack, by and large, is a slow approach toward you, constant following of you, if you like, waiting for its tactical advantage to come in and get on you.
Come on, let's go. Kelly, come on.
Patty and Kelly have walked into a death trap. Frozen with fear, she has no idea what to do.
Kelly,
All right, Mom.
there's a bear.
Yeah, right, Mom. I didn't believe what she was saying. She's always fooling around. I didn't know what to believe.
Kelly. Kelly.
But it's no joke.
Don't move.
If it's not making any noise, if it's not making a commotion, and it starts coming at you, this bear's in a predatory mode, and you've got to start thinking about, what can I do to defend myself?
The 400-pound beast viciously attacks Patty. Both she and Kelly are staring death in the face. This bear could rip them apart in seconds. In a nature park in British Columbia, 13-year-old Kelly McConnell has put his life on the line to save his mother from the jaws of a bear.
And I was screaming for help, and there was no one around. I felt so helpless.
The bloodthirsty beast tears into Patty.
It was trying to eat my mother.
Bears don't always completely kill their prey before eating it. They'll just start eating. And they do that with big game animals, and it's pretty well known that they do it with people too.
Kelly desperately tries to save his mother. But then, in a heartbeat, the bear turns on him.
I can just remember thinking, I hope that I saved my mother's life, but I remember thinking it was all a nightmare.
Kelly has become the beast's next meal. The bear locks its powerful jaws around his waist and lifts him off the ground.
I could feel the bones crunching in my body like I was pretty sure I was gonna die.
Kelly's about to pass out, but suddenly the animal drops him. He falls on his front, keeping his vital organs safe from the bear's teeth and claws.
It just began mauling me from the backside. It would just bite into my back and just tear my skin. It was eating me.
Kelly and his mom are so far from the hot springs, there's a danger no one will hear their screams. But one man does. Ray Kitchen, a truck driver, races to the scene and heroically takes on the man-eater himself.
This is an animal that's obsessively hungry, if not starving to death, and it may see other people that interfere as trying to take the carcass away from them.
The bear's reaction is explosive. It turns on Kitchen and begins to eat him alive.
Bears sometimes go into what they call surplus killing. They get into a herd of sheep, and it's so easy to kill them, they just knock them over left and right, way more than they're ever going to be able to eat.
Kelly is too badly wounded to do anything to help. Kitchen is pinned beneath the raging animal. He can do nothing to stop it ripping him to pieces. Tony Dowk, a trucker from Alberta, hears Kitchen screaming and comes to help.
I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The bear was on Ray Kitchen, mauling him to death. And it stared at me. I was looking at it straight in the eyes. And I hit him dead square in the eyes. And its claws come up and just missed me because I jumped back.
Tony is lucky the bear doesn't go after him. Instead, it finally kills Ray Kitchen.
I heard Ray scream his last few, or try to scream, the last few thought or sounds that his voice could make. And I screamed, oh my God, and that was it.
Ray's throat has been ripped open.
They're getting the neck because they're going for the windpipe and for the vertebrae.
Kelly's wounds are so bad, he can't move. Patty is alive, but very weak.
She told me that I should take care of my sisters. And then she told me she loved me.
Patty loses consciousness. Other people are drawn by the shouts. They desperately try to keep the furious bear away from Kelly and his mom. Paramedic Ingrid Bailey joins the frantic rescue effort.
Mr. Kitchen was just flat out on the ground, missing a big chunk of his neck. And at that point, I stopped trying to do anything for Mr. Kitchen and went over and aided the other two folks who had already been attacked.
Ingrid does what she can, even though she could be next.
You gotta put pressure on those wounds.
The bear is only a few feet away. It could strike at any moment. The only way to end the carnage is by killing the bear.
Keep putting pressure on that wound.
But this vicious predator is not done yet with its bloody rampage. It has the taste for human flesh and wants more. A black bear has savagely attacked Patty and Kelly McConnell and killed the man who tried to help them. Now the bloodthirsty bear is on the rampage and heading towards the hot springs. There's panic. But running bodies trigger the bear's killer instinct.
The attraction of moving prey overrides the feeding. They'll feed later.
The massacre won't end until someone kills the crazed beast. Ingrid Bailey is still trying to revive Patty when the bear attacks another victim.
He caught up with a group of college students, and the last student in line slipped on the boardwalk, which was a little damp from a light rain, and the bear caught up with that person and mauled him as well.
Finally, someone arrives with a gun. The bear is shot dead.
Lots of pressure. He's losing a lot of blood.
But it's too late for Patty McConnell. She dies of her horrific injuries. Her 13-year-old son, Kelly, just manages to pull through.
Both my lungs were punctured. They said there was over 100 centimeters of stitches. I had suffered a few broken ribs. 3 of my vertebrae were broken.
An attack like this is very rare. 2 people are dead and 2 seriously injured. But incredibly, Kelly doesn't hate the animal that took his mother's life.
I feel like the bear, it didn't try to do anything that wasn't normal for it to do. I mean, normally bears don't attack people, and then probably had no choice but to attack or else die from starvation itself.
The horrific events at Liard Park show just how helpless we are when these predators turn on us. Without a gun, the death toll could have been much higher. Killing a bear in full attack mode is difficult, even with modern weapons. Back in the 1800s, it was much harder. As Michigan hunter and trapper Franklin Devereaux found out in 1883 when he tried to shoot a grizzly. In the time it took to reload his gun, the enraged bear charged and killed him.
Placing a headshot, unless the bear is immobile, is just about impossible. The skull is very hard. The handler, you'd have trouble breaking it.
In those days, bears were often only injured, and a wounded bear is extremely dangerous. It will stop at nothing to kill its attacker. The invention of the repeating rifle finally gave man the upper hand.
When we went from single-shot muskets to lever-action repeating rifles, that was a huge blow to grizzly bears. And it was both a combination of firepower, how fast you could shoot, and also the power of the weapon.
Hunting bears became a popular sport. They were killed in the thousands. Grizzly bear numbers plummeted, and today they are protected by law. But as more hunters and hikers venture into the last remaining wilderness, violent encounters still happen. And when an angry bear attacks, even a modern weapon may not save you. In the summer of 2001, Pastor Johnny McCoy found a gun wasn't enough to protect him from a furious grizzly, determined to see him dead.
And she was literally just trying to break my skull.
Pastor Johnny McCoy and church deacon Gary Coral are old friends who've been hunting together for years. They're on a 2-week hunting trip in the Alaskan wilderness.
We was going moose hunting to have the meat for the winter, or for the following year. That's what we eat. That's the food for the family.
They are well aware of the dangers lurking in the woods. While tracking their prey, they soon notice signs of grizzlies.
Makes me absolutely nervous walking through the woods, knowing that there are bear there, knowing that we are in their territory.
Wait, is it nearby? Yeah, probably not. Keep my eyes open.
This scat belongs to a female grizzly. She has cubs nearby. McCoy and Coral trek further into the bear's territory. Unlike hikers, they make as little noise as possible.
Hunters are probably more prone to bump into bears than other people because they're moving quietly.
Catch up to you. All right.
right. I'll be up ahead. Just keep...
McCoy takes a break. Coral presses on. Alone, he's much more likely to be attacked. Coral is walking quietly. The grizzly won't see or hear him until it's too late.
It was probably just out there with its cubs. All of a sudden, here's these people. So to Ma Grizzly, you see that as a threat.
McCoy, meanwhile, hurries to catch up with Coral. Suddenly, something tears out of the trees. It's racing towards Coral.
She ran right out within 10 feet in front of me. In my mind, I said, it's a bear.
McCoy can't shoot. He could hit Coral. By the time his friend hears a grizzly, it's too late.
And as I turned my head and looked around, all I could see was the mouth of a bear, and it was wide open. I just thought that the bear's going to kill me. Today I'm going to go be with the Lord.
At first, Coral's backpack shields him from the deadly claws.
The bear was just trying to get the pack out of the way to get it down.
I'm thinking my buddy is, you know, my best friend is going to be killed. So I'm saying, God, what do I do?
But Coral doesn't panic. Incredibly, he pulls his gun out from under him and points it blindly over his shoulder.
It wasn't an easy thing to do. I squeezed the trigger and boom. It was instant relief.
But a second later, Coral hears a terrifying scream. Church Deacon Gary Coral has been attacked by a grizzly. He shot the bear, making it let go. Now the enraged beast turns on Coral's hunting buddy, Johnny McCoy.
When bears are injured during an attack, it seems that pain is a stimulus to attack harder.
McCoy reacts with lightning speed.
And I just took my gun, I thought, oh my goodness, and shoved it in her mouth.
The grizzly bites down.
When I shoved that gun in her mouth and pulled the trigger, there was nothing. Absolutely nothing. And then she just swatted out of the way.
The grizzly leaps on McCoy with a vengeance, biting deep into his arm and shoulder.
And I've never heard any more agonizing screams of horror than the screams that I heard him put out.
And first thing that she did was to bite and break my arms in 9 places.
A grizzly's jaws can exert over 750 pounds of force. It's like being hit by a sledgehammer. Coral can't shoot in case he hits McCoy. He can only watch as the bear tears his friend apart.
I could hear the bones crunching. I could actually hear them breaking. I seemed to even be able to hear the flesh being ripped off of these bones.
McCoy can't fight anymore. His arms are badly mauled. The grizzly now lunges for his head, the death blow.
And all I could smell was her breath. It was the most awful stench I've ever smelled in my life. And I thought, okay, you know, God, this is it. You know, Lord, I'm ready. This is it. And I just quit. I just quit.
McCoy's body goes limp.
And the bear turned around and looked at me.
Suddenly, the bear runs off.
I think in about 1 second, he must have covered 100 yards. He was clear out of sight. I never fired a shot. It was so quick.
McCoy is in bad shape.
I'd already resigned the fact that I was not going to make it. I could have bled to death.
Johnny.
Both his arms are badly injured. His scalp is shredded. His ear is torn off. One eye hangs from its socket.
Talk to me. Talk to me.
Coral must act quickly to save his friend.
Well, we had lots of game sacks. So I took the game sacks and put his scalp back on as good as I could and put his eyeball back in his head and stuffed his ear up in there and tied the game sacks on him. And when I got done, I looked at him and I thought, oh my, I thought, how am I ever going to get him to stand up?
McCoy can't see anything, and they've left their cell phone back at the camp. It takes the injured hunters 3 hours to get there. Eventually, they are airlifted to the hospital.
Emotionally, I'm still dealing with that. It's tough. If I'm under a lot of stress, my wife has to wake me up because I'm fighting with a bear all over again.
I woke up a few times at night thinking about this bear on my back. With the bear tearing him apart, and the bones crunching, sure, you don't ever forget that.
The grizzly bear was later found dead of the single gunshot wound. Thousands of people encounter bears every year, but attacks are unusual.
It's most likely one of two causes. One, it's a predatory incident, and that happens with both black bears and grizzly bears. And then the second thing is defense of personal space.
When bears do strike, it can have a profound and lasting effect on those who are lucky enough to survive.
In the blink of an instant, your life can completely be changed without you having any say in what happens. So you should just go out and live every day like it's your last day, because it might be. You just never know.
I will never, ever be the same again in a tremendous way. I don't take the wildlife for granted. I don't take grizzly bears for granted anymore.
Despite their close brush with death, many survivors don't blame the animals.
I have no ill feelings towards grizzly bears whatsoever. I think they're incredible animals. When you're going through a country that still has grizzly bears in it, it's just beautiful to see.
But as we encroach ever further into bear territory, there will still be times when we become human prey.